What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another comic video. Today we're going to be talking about 10 modern grails. Okay, before we get started, if you can hit that like button, and if you like the content, please subscribe. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's define what a grail is. Simply put, it's a comic that everybody wants. No matter what the market looks like, no matter when, no matter anything, people are always going to want these comics, these specific issues. Everyone's always going to want first appearance of Wolverine, first appearance of Venom, first appearance of Deadpool, Spider-Man, Daredevil. You name any major hero villain, everyone's always going to want it. And because of that, over time, it's always going to steadily increase in value because there's always going to be people coming into the market that's always going to still want those. Even if they're a new person in the comic collecting, hobby, you know, if they want to go back and say, you know, I want to get the first appearance of Fantastic Four when the MCU movie comes out, then, you know, they're going to go back and, you know, that's something they're going to, you know, aspire to get, strive to get. It's also going to be, it has to also be something significant. Most likely it's going to be either a first issue or a significant appearance, whether it's a cameo or full appearance. For the most part, it's a full appearances are the grails here. And I think for the list, it's going to be mostly the full appearances because cameos, although this is the real first appearance because they're actually in the comic, it doesn't really count as the full appearance. But that's another discussion for another day. So let's move on. The modern grails for the modern period for me is from 2000 until now, because if you think about it, we're in 2021. It's been over 20 years since, so that's a long time. Also, that is when CGC first started, and you know, coincidentally, that's also kind of when everyone started really taking care of their comics, because before the year 2000, before CGC came out, a near mint was just a near mint. There were no real tangible evidence or data that there is a difference between a near mint minus and a near mint plus, because back then there was no, it's just near mint. But once CGC came around, people really scrutinized these issues. So there are differences, and that's when really people really took care of their issues, put them in Mylars, put them in, you know, fullbacks, top loaders, whatever, starting pressing, cleaning them, because when they want to turn them into CGC, they want to get the highest grade possible, which is a 9.8. So that's my criteria, because the 9.8s before that are, to me, a little bit harder to find because people will just think that their near mint is a near mint. So trying to get a 9.8 before that is a little bit harder because people just probably read their book and look, hey, it's a near mint, it's good to go, put in the box, in the bag. But now, even reading it can put stress on the bind, on the spine, and it could be a 9.6 now. Who knows? Anyway, what I have here are 10 books that are what I feel are the next class of grails going forward in the next 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even longer. A lot of these have been going up in value now. They're starting to price people out because of all the new movie projects, TV shows. You know, Disney Plus is a big influence here, as you'll see. And, you know, if and when DC can get their stuff together, you know, they could be in there too. But when you look at this list, it's going to be a bunch of younger heroes, newer heroes, obviously because it's from 2000 until now. And all of this has to do with the speculation and projects that are forthcoming for the movies and the Disney Plus shows. Some of them haven't even appeared yet, but the spec is there. And when they do come, you know, all these are going to go up. So without further ado, let's move on. Okay, starting at number 10, we have Marvel Point 1 from 2011. It's issue 1, and it features the first appearance of Sam Alexander, the new Nova. Looking at the raw numbers here, right now, the raw fair market value is at $19, which is pretty good because, you know, this character's not in the MCU any, you know, not yet, at least, but we could see him in the future. You know, they already introduced the Nova Corps, and, you know, if Thanos destroyed it, we might see the origin of either Sam Alexander or Richard Rider in a Nova solo film, where they might even show Thanos destroying Xandar and you know, the origin of Nova. But the CGC 9.8 right now is at $320, and there are only 205 graded 9.8s on the census, which is 50% of all graded copies. So it is a fairly low number because this is a character that's not really in the on the radar as much, although a lot of people have been specking on it, which is why the value of the 9.8s have increased to $320 at this point. So that is something to look forward to. This is going to be one of, I think, two characters on this list that have not appeared in live action yet, so there could be a point where they increase quite a bit when they do come out. All right, the next one is number 9. We have Captain America number 25 from 2014, and everybody knows this because this is one of the hot books right now. It's the first appearance of Sam Wilson as Captain America, and to note, this is the quote-unquote oldest hero here because he's been around since the 70s, and him turning into Captain America is basically a new character. And because the MCU is using Falcon as a new Captain America for future movies, this could be poised to be the Grail of the period of like the new characters when it comes to the MCU. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but right now this is the guy, because if Captain America will be the future of the MCU, then this issue should really go up, because right now the raw fair market value on these is $57, and CGCs are going, the last one sold for $510. There are only 217 of these graded, and they make up for 59% of all graded copies on the census. I feel that 217 will go up quite a bit because a lot of people who've been sitting on these issues have all of a sudden submitted these. So this is going to be something that goes up. Okay, moving on to number 8, we have Invincible Iron Man number 9, and a 2016 book, and it features the first full appearance of Riri Williams, also known as Ironheart. As you know, Ironheart will have a Disney Plus show coming out soon. It is going for $186 raw sales, and the last CGC 9.8 sold for $830. There are 703 9.8s on the census, making up for 59% of the census, 59% of all graded copies. That's a pretty good number. 703, I think once people realized that Ironheart was going to be something in the MCU, I think people already started submitting their issues to CGC. But this is another one that can be a long-term grail, because if they make Ironheart a big deal in the MCU, they're probably going to make her a big deal in the comics. And you know, this issue is where it all started. Of course, issue 7 was the cameo, but the money is in the full appearance here. Okay, moving on to number 7, we have Star Wars Kanan number 6, a book from 2015, which features the first appearance of Sabine Wren. As you know, the Ahsoka show is coming out, and if anybody watched the end of Rebels, Ahsoka and Sabine both are going to go look for Ezra Bridger. So they might do something about that, a story about that, and mainly we might see Sabine Wren in the Ahsoka show, live action, which would be awesome. This has been seeing quite a bit of uptick in both attention and sales especially since the Bad Batch just came out. But as you can see here, the raw sales are at $201, and the last CGC 9.8 sold for $850. There are 367 9.8s on the census with a 58% clip of all graded copies. The $850, I think, will probably be a bargain right now, because as of now it is jumping quite a bit. Not too long ago this was like a $600 book, $500 book, but since the spec on behind this has been really increasing, I think I see this being over $1,000 real quick. So try to get yours if you can. $201 for raw copies that's pretty high too, but that's assuming you're getting something that's pretty high grade. Okay, moving on to number 6, we have Young Avengers #1 from 2005, which features the first appearance of the Young Avengers team. Almost all of them. It's Wiccan, Iron Lad, Hulkling, Kate Bishop. And this is a spec, but these characters are going to appear in the MCU sooner rather than later, I think, because we already have Kate Bishop, we already have Cassie Lang, we have Wiccan, we have Tommy and Billy, we have Patriot as well. So they're all in there. We're just waiting for them to form that team at some point. But there are the raw sales are $337 for this, which is pretty high. But I think that's because the spec is really, really high on this. And the last 9.8 CGC sold for $1,275. And there are 1,254 9.8s on the census, making up 54% of all graded copies. That is a really high number, comparatively speaking. So this should be fairly easy to find. So I think the numbers, the sales of this should at least either taper off or cool off a little bit, unless they keep, introducing more characters and we really start going into it. But the demand on this is pretty high, even though we haven't really seen them fully in action. They're just kind of introduced in the MCU. But I see this one being a $1,500 to $2,000 book once they really form, because the demand on this is pretty high right now. And surprisingly, we don't see as many 9.8s up there. I think a lot of people are just holding on to these for now until the time is right. But moving on to number 5, we have Marvel .1 from 2014. Issue 1 is the first full appearance of Kamala Khan, also known as Miss Marvel. We know she'll be appearing in the Marvels movie, as well as her own MCU show, Disney Plus. So the hype around this is really starting to increase. The raw sales on this, the $305 for a raw copy of this is $305, and the last CGC 9.8 sold for $1,495. There are only 280 copies graded at 9.8 on the census, which makes up for 21%. So this is one of the harder ones to get, which I think, why I think the price is so high. There aren't that many, and people who do have them are probably holding on to them, I think. I also think there aren't that many that were even sold back in 2014, which makes it even that much harder. So I see this price really going. There's another book that's going to be a $2,000 book once she's introduced, because she might be the new, obviously she's going to be the new Miss Marvel, but just not many copies out there, and the demand is high. So this one is another one that's going to go way up. And then we're on to number 4, which is an interesting book here. It's Amazing Fantasy number 15, not the 1960s one. It's the one from 2006, which is the first appearance of Amadeus Cho, also known as Mastermind XLO, or Totally Awesome Hulk. This is another spec book, but the numbers on this are crazy, right? The raw copies are going for $233, and the last CGC 9.8 sold for $1,600. There are only 185 9.8s on the census, which makes up for 27% of all graded copies. And this is the lowest number for a 9.8 on this list. It also has the most upside because we haven't seen Amadeus Cho in the MCU yet. So if it's already like this with no Amadeus Cho, imagine when he's introduced. This is going to skyrocket. Also, there aren't that many copies of this just floating around because this wasn't a book that was, in demand back then. It wasn't. It wasn't ordered in large quantities by retailers, and he is an Asian superhero, which right now, the superhero universe is on an Asian trend right now, right? They're trying to do a lot of Asian heroes, introducing a lot of Asian heroes. So he's just the next in line. And when he does come, this is going to go up. So if I would try to get these if I can right now. Okay, number 3, we have Vengeance, number 1 from 2011. It's the first appearance of America Chavez, also known as Miss America. We know that she's going to be appearing in the Doctor Strange 2 movie. So it's another one of those young heroes that's the Marvel Universe is pushing into the MCU, to hold down the fort in the future. Raw copies are going for $216, and the last CGC 9.8 sold for $2,000. There are 319 9.8s, making up 43% of all graded copies. This is another book that was, there's a theme here. This is another book that wasn't ordered as much by retailers back when it came out. So that's one of the driving factors in why the prices are so high, because not only were they not ordered, but then you also have to get 9.8s of this copy of this book. So $2,000 is what it's going for. It's going to go up more once they introduce her. And this is probably going to be another one of those hard to get, really high value books. Okay, so number 2, we have the one of the big ones here. Ultimate Fallout number 4 from 2011, which is, of course, the first appearance of Miles Morales, also known as Ultimate Spider-Man. Well, one of the Ultimate Spider-Man. But he's now with 616. But this one is, for all intents and purposes, the grail of all grails for this time period. But, of course, it's not number 1, so when we get there, you'll see why. But there are 2,547 copies of this in the 9.8, but it still sells for $2,850 as a graded copy, 9.8, and with raw copies selling for $516. This makes up 28% of all graded copies on the census. This is the highest number of 9.8s graded in this top 10 by a long shot. But the demand is still super, super high because it is still Spider-Man. Many are saying that this is like the future grail of grails for the time period going forward. That remains to be seen, but it's no denying that Miles Morales is super popular. And if and when we see him in the MCU, this should easily break that $3,000 mark, even $4,000, $5,000. Doesn't matter how many copies there are in the census. If everyone still wants it, it's not going to matter as much. So this is something that I think if you could have got it last year, it would have been perfect, because right now it's pretty high, but I think this is going to go even higher. So maybe the time is still now to buy it. Okay, now moving on to number 1, and this one is not a Marvel MCU book. It's a Star Wars book. It's Star Wars: The Clone Wars number 1 from 2008, which features the first appearance of Ahsoka Tano. And as you know, that her show's coming out. She was a really popular character in the Clone Wars animated, and when she appeared in The Mandalorian, everyone just went crazy. And because of all those factors, this has the potential to be the grail of grails for the modern age. Raw copies are selling for $1,000 or more. It's $1,009. That's crazy. It's double the amount of any of the other books in this top 10, right? It's $1,000 just to get this in raw form. And the CGC 9.8 last sold for $3,599. There are only 202 9.8s on the census, which makes up 38% of all graded copies. So this is another one that is a low 9.8 number. This is the second lowest one on this top 10 list, and that's reflected by the price. So there aren't very many out there to begin with. And also, I think there's another book that wasn't ordered as much by retailers back in 2008. So I think $3,599 is probably going to be cheap going forward, at least when the show comes out, because this is high demand, very popular character, very high demand book. So this is probably going to keep going up. So, all right. So that's the top 10. Let me know if you guys think I missed any, or if you would take any off or add any. But these are the criteria for me was just to see the crazy numbers and the future spec on these, as well as the demand for it right now. So maybe I missed a couple. Maybe there will be more different ones, but you can see, half of these are already in the $1,000-$2,000 mark. It's probably going to keep going up, and it's only been, a few years for some of these. So, all right. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Until next time, guys. See ya.